Hello, and welcome to today's webinar, in which we're going to show you how MarkLogic helps unlock value from your complex data and enable data agility. My name is Alicia Saya. I'm with the MarkLogic marketing team, and I'll be moderating today's session. With me today, I have my colleague Lance from our solutions engineering team, and he's going to show you how to create and enrich metadata knowledge models with our Semaphore software. Now, before we go any further, I want to let you know that your lines are muted, but you can ask a question at any time using the Q&A section of the screen. And we do have time reserved at the end to answer those questions. After the webinar, you'll get a link to the recording, so don't worry if you missed anything. Now, I've got just one slide here to give you a little context about MarkLogic and our platform. Anywhere there's a desire to do more with information and do it faster, visionary organizations turn to MarkLogic to solve problems others can't. MarkLogic helps you get more value from your complex data and do it faster by delivering data agility. Now, we define data agility as the ability to quickly and easily make changes to how any information is interpreted and acted on at any scale and for any purpose. Now, our customers want to work with information differently. They want to connect information, create and interpret meaning, and consume data along with everything that's known about it for a variety of purposes across the enterprise. We provide a multi-model data platform packed with capabilities like built-in search, semantic AI, mastering, and security that lets them do that. Now, today's webinar is focused on that middle part, creating metadata and knowledge models to give context to your data. And now I'm going to turn it over to Lance to show you how it works.
Hello, my name is Lance Thiessen, and I am a Semaphore solution architect at Progress Software. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the benefits of metadata management. We're going to do a demo that shows how to classify a document to determine its aboutness. We're going to discuss different sources of data and models that can be used to create models in Semaphore. And then finally, we'll dive into ways to enrich your Semaphore models using our Semaphore side panel tools. And we'll talk about a number of those different tools as well as some custom tools you can create yourself. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Talk about metadata management. So me personally, when I think about metadata management, I used to, work in the computer forensics space, and I'd always think about it's the information about the data, type of file it is, what system applies, what it's applied to, the creation date, the modified date, the author, things like that. But when we start talking about Semaphore, we talk about the semantic metadata. So it describes the meaning of data. We're talking about topics, concepts, products, geography, things like that. Then we take the conversation to active metadata. So this makes the data management process intelligent and dynamic. We integrate it for operational use. So we integrate it into other applications to reveal actionable data faster. So we're talking about like fact extraction, PII markers, retention markers, things like that. So some of the enterprise initiatives where metadata can help are listed here. I don't want to talk about all of them. We don't have the time to do that, but it's a nice list, and I can dive into a couple of them. For instance, information security could use it to identify PII patterns, identify any kind of secure data that might need to be treated differently as other records. You could classify documents in that same way to determine, what kind of a document is it? Is it a marketing kind of document? Is it something that should be classified as top secret or something like that? We can do things like compliance and audits. We can have, with KMM alone, you can have your taxonomy and ontology managed in there. Meaning and context, you can determine the aboutness of document, like I mentioned earlier, and even customer experience. We've used Semaphore to determine maybe what a query is someone is sending to a help desk, and determine what department they should be asking the question to, so we can route the message to the right group faster, so it helps them get to their information faster. We can use it to help their search experience as well. So what are some places that it integrates with and capabilities? Talked a little bit about business glossary and reference data earlier. You can even build that out to a semantically enhanced data catalog. Data and fact extraction is something I touched on earlier. That's where we could find our known unknowns. So maybe there's a date in unstructured data that we need to pull out, or a name, or an organization, or even a clause that we need to extract out of a document and do something with it. Get your metadata hubs. Of course, we have your enterprise knowledge graph. And here at MarkLogic, we love those. Semantically enhanced analytics is great if you're working with a Tableau or a Domo type product. Search and discovery. We work great with like an Elasticsearch, makes the search way more intelligent. We can raise other topics that might be of interest and things like that. But today, in the demo, just to give an idea of something you can do with the metadata management aspect, it's this subjective enrichment, the aboutness. So I'm going to take a document and I'm going to classify it, and Semaphore is going to tell us what that document is about. And that takes us to our demo. So this is a little screenshot of the document that we're going to classify. We're going to use our space missions model for this entire demo. This is something we created for NASA many years ago, and it has a lot to do with the Apollo missions. We've added some more information of more modern history as time gone on, but for this demo, we're going to stick to the Apollo information. And this document is about Apollo 11, but we took out the string. We stripped out the string Apollo 11. So you can see I typed in Apollo 11, I got no matches. So a lot of people will say, well, Lance, if the string Apollo 11 doesn't exist in this document, how could it possibly identify that? Well, we're not going to look for the string Apollo 11. We're going to look for the thing Apollo 11. So in Semaphore, we described what Apollo 11 is. Some things like its crew members, or synonyms to describe it, or synonyms that are the same meaning as it. And Semaphore looks for that evidence in the document, and then can return that the document is about Apollo 11. So let's go ahead and do that demo. And this tool here is the Semaphore Document Analyzer. And this is a tool used by our information science folks that are trying to tweak Semaphore to classify properly. It's good for demos. It's good for development. It's not a production tool. It's just like a one-off tool. You can only send one file at a time. So let's go ahead and do that. I have my space mission doc here. I'm going to drop it right in and send it for classification. Make the screen a little bigger. I'm going to narrow in on my mission class here. So I'm going to filter out everything else and focus on this. So what I expect to happen when I click on this mission button here is that it should tell me that this document over here, that's the text I dropped in, is talking about Apollo 11. So let's go ahead and take a look. Yep, we got Apollo 11 back. That's good. And it's got a nice strong score of 0.92. A 1 is a perfect score. So a lot of people ask me, well, how did we get there? How did we possibly be able to identify this document as being about Apollo 11? Well, if I click this guy here, it will show me in the text, get rid of this dialog, what evidence was used to determine this result. So first off, we see the crew members. Well, not that, but we see Neil Armstrong, and we see Buzz Aldrin and Michael Collins. We see Eagle, which is referencing the lunar module. I'll skip over. These are some noun phrases, some synonyms here that we mentioned in the alt labels. There's Michael Collins again. Saturn V, that's the rocket that's used. Tranquility Base, that's where it landed. So these are just general facts about Apollo 11 that were captured, just using layman's terms. Didn't have to write any code or anything like that to put in the model. I'm going to show you that now. So I'm going to hop right over to KMM, our Knowledge Model Management tool. You see we have, this is in the Space Missions model that I mentioned earlier. We're looking at the Apollo 11 concept. So let me walk you through these details a little bit so you get an idea of what's going on. So here's Apollo 11. It's of the mission class. These are the preferred labels. This is how we want to refer to this term in each language. You can only have one per language. So there's our English Apollo 11. Down here we have our alt labels or our synonyms. You can just use a generic alt label, or you can create your own custom type alt labels, a call sign or skin ID. Other things could be like abbreviations or slang, whatever it is, just a synonym to represent this Apollo 11 concept. Down here we have some other metadata fields that you can add in. We've got just definition here and a launch date, illustration. And then finally, what I want to talk about here is the associative relationships. And we talked a lot about this when we were looking at the document when it classified. So we have the crew, Buzz Aldrin, Michael Collins, Neil Armstrong. And these relationship types here, these are all custom made. So those would be created for your models. So we have landed at sea at Tranquility, launched by Saturn V rocket, launched from Kennedy Space Complex, and so forth. So these are just layman's terms describing Apollo 11. Right? And another way of looking at it is with the visualizer. So the bubble graph here. So Apollo 11, we can see our crew, our spacecraft. And you can actually navigate the model by just clicking on these as well. So this takes me to my Neil Armstrong concept. If I look at the detail, I can see them as well. So let's go back to Apollo 11. So a lot of people ask me at this point, how do I get my data in there? This was really cool. I think this is a great tool. I think this could provide a lot of value. Does it do it automatically? How do I get started? That's a great question. So we'll just jump into that. I'm going to bring the deck back up for a minute. We'll talk a little bit about creating and enriching Semaphore models. So how do I get my data into Semaphore? It's always the big question. Well, there's a couple different ways of doing that. One is using our friends at WAND. That's one of our partners. They have a number of pre-built taxonomy and ontologies and a number of verticals, and they're in RDF format, which is great for Semaphore because you can just import it right in. Just a single document import, very simple. And they have a number of different taxonomies and ontologies to use. Another way is taking advantage of the Wikidata site or other sites like that, where you can run a Sparkle query against their site, download the data into a CSV, or you can even within Semaphore using the Sparkle query tool in Semaphore, you could make a call to Wikidata and import your data directly in that way. I once built a model about the U.S. presidents that was pretty complex, and I used all the data from Wikidata. Another great way of getting started with your models is using open source models. I listed a couple here. These are a couple of my favorites. The NIM is National Information Exchange. It's for the U.S. government. It's how it's common vocabulary between agencies and public organizations, how they could talk to each other using that common vocabulary. Medra is another example of an open source one. It has a lot of medical terms. I've used it a few times in medical related demos. And finally, just what you have on site. This is our MarkLogic's Data Hub logo. So it's for me, it's representing relational databases, graph databases, indexes, all kind of fun stuff. Just data you have on site that you could extract and start building your models from there. So when you get to the point of import, we have a couple different ways of doing that. You can import your RDF, XML file, turtle files. You can also use spreadsheets, which is a very simple process. You can use flat imports, so just importing a list from a spreadsheet. That could be for your concepts. It could be for your synonyms. You can create your relationships through CSV imports. You can also import your models with hierarchical relationships. Very easy to do with CSVs. And once you load them in, the process is just basically mapping up your column in your spreadsheet with your column in Semaphore. And if you've ever done that, like from a CSV to a database or CSV to application fields, it's pretty much the same process. It's pretty simple. And then you just do next, and off it goes. Another great way of getting your information into Semaphore is via our knowledge review tool. And this is a crowdsourcing tool. So your subject matter experts would log in, and they can make suggestions for new concepts, which is what is happening here. They're suggesting a new concept, Lance Thiessen, alt label short name Lance, metadata birthday. So they can make suggestions for new concepts. They can make suggestions for editing concepts. And once they do that, that is presented to the curator of the model. So the SME doesn't have to understand taxonomies or ontologies. They just need to understand the knowledge. So they enter it in here. It is presented to the curator. The curator then puts it into the model. So they can accept it, decline it. Once that concept's in there, they can continue to enrich that. So another great tool to get your information into Semaphore. So leading up to the next demo, now that we have our models in there, and I want to continue to add more information, add more alt labels, add more metadata fields, look for more concepts, look for more alt labels and things like that. So we have what we call the side panel tool. See the side panel tool referencing over here. We're looking at the Wikipedia tool, which I will demonstrate in a moment. So it's basically just this little pane over here on the right, and it's engaging with the highlighted concept, which in this case is Apollo 11. So we have a couple different tools you can use. We have the lexical resource tool, which makes suggestions for alt labels, so synonyms. We have the text analytics tool, which allows you to bring a collection of documents and run it against your model, and it'll allow you to make suggestions. Sorry, it'll allow you to add in new concepts and alt labels suggested from the collection of data. We also have the translation widget, which basically will translate your preferred label and your alt labels into another language. So, from English into Spanish or something like that. I'll demonstrate that. And then finally, the Wikipedia one, which we're looking at right here. Finally, the custom internal tools. So you can make your own side panel tools, which is very cool. You can point to your databases, your graph databases, to indexes, whatever, or whatever tool you want to create. It's available for you here via APIs. All right, so I believe that brings us to our demo. Yeah, so now I'm going to show you how some of these side panel tools work. Let's go back to Semaphore. I'm just going to pick up where we left off with Apollo 11 here. Right now I have the side panel tool kind of set to on the comment section, so I can just leave a comment here and save it. And that'll be there, on this Apollo 11 for until it's deleted. We also have model structure help, which just kind of shows you available relationships, metadata fields, labels, things like that. And the first one we're going to do today is text analytics. What this does is it takes a collection of documents, which I've already included the documents on the site, so I'm not going to show you that. It's just basically dropping a zip file of documents into Semaphore and giving the collection a name. So it's just these oddly named HTML files and text files. We're going to run the analytic tool against this and Apollo 11, and it's going to make some suggestions for us. So let's go ahead and do that. So Apollo 11 is entered in as a preferred label. We could do the alt label, or we could even put other preferred labels in there. Let's go ahead and analyze this. So it's coming back. It has my model labels in yellow, proximity candidates in blue, and then in this reddish color is the overlapping candidates. You can look at one document at a time, or different sections at a time. But what I'm going to do for this demo is we're just going to look at the proximity candidates. And it basically tells us how many hits it found, how many documents it found it in. I can open the results directly, and this allows me to add a candidate. So as a curator of this model, I know that Johnson Space Center is not included. So I'm going to go ahead and add this candidate. And I can either add it as an alt label, or I can include a new concept. So we'll include this new concept, and I can have multiple preferred labels per different languages. I just have to change the language in each row. This is where it's going to live in the hierarchy or the concept scheme. I know that I have a top level concept called point of interest, so I'm going to put it under there. And then I'm going to give it a class as well. It's a flight control site, so we will put it under that class and submit. So what happens now is Semaphore adds this new concept into the model. Let's go see, make sure. And with our search as you type feature, I can see that there's Johnson Space Center there, and it has the right class, the flight control site. Let's go ahead and take a look at this concept real quick. Yep, looks good. So let's, for fun, let's take a look at the text analytics for Johnson Space Center and see what comes back. Again, I'm going to jump to the proximity. This JSC is an abbreviation for Johnson Space Center. I'm going to go ahead and take that candidate and make it an alt label. And I can change what type of alt label it is. I'm just going to keep the generic alt label. Click Submit, and will we actually be able to see it here? And there it is. Okay, great. So that's how the text analytics side panel tool works. Let's try out some more here. The lexical resources side panel. So this is making suggestions for additional alt labels. So synonyms. This is actually doing some machine learning. It's going on the web and it's looking for terms of similar nature, and it's putting in little clusters here And then at the very end, it actually does a little WordNet search as well. So what can I do with this? All I have to do is basically select a couple of these alt labels, click the add. It gives me this little dialog box showing me these are the ones that were suggested and selected, the language I want them in, and then again I can pick the type. If I hit save, they were just added to my Johnson Space Center concept as alt labels. Next one we're going to look at is the translation widget. Pretty simple stuff here. It's just going to take the preferred label and the alt labels, and it's going to translate them into the language I select. We can use other. This is not the only languages that are available. These are the languages associated with this model. That's why they're there. Let's go ahead and translate them. And there's my preferred label suggestion and my alt label suggestions. I don't really think that provides much value. It's the same as English. I'm just going to take that out of there. And since it's a proper name, I'm not going to include that translation. So it would have given me the preferred label here, except I took it out. I have another opportunity to pull these, delete these if I don't want to use them, change the type if I want. So click Save, and now I have more alt labels in Spanish. Very handy tool. So the next one we're going to look at is the Wikipedia one, which we kind of saw earlier with the in the deck. What I'm going to do with this is I'm going to add some metadata. Let's see, we'll choose definition. Yeah. So all I have to do is highlight this text from the Wikipedia article here and drop it in. Click Save. And now I've very simply added that that paragraph. I should scroll down here, but you see there's some more data points here. It brings back all these facets as well, so quite a bit to work with. One more thing for fun, let's add an illustration. Very simple. So that about does it for the canned side panel tools. Again, I'll remind you that you can create your own tools here, pointing to databases or indexes, whatever, to help continue to enrich your model. So you see that we went from the text analytics to the Johnson Space Center. We found that reference in there, that proximity candidate. We added it, applied the class to it. We did the analytics tool again. We found this alt label. We went into the lexical resources tool and found a bunch of other alt labels, translated them into Spanish, and then we went to Wikipedia and dropped them on here. And I did it with just pointing and clicking pretty much. So thank you for your time today. I appreciate your attention and look forward to hearing any questions you might have. Thanks.
Thanks, Lance. That was great. Now, before we move to the Q&A, I wanted to sum up the reasons our customers choose MarkLogic to solve their complex data problems. Now, first, the MarkLogic platform is unique in that it treats data and metadata as a single data resource, regardless of format, type, location, or quantity. Now, data, including all its metadata, is connected or ingested as is, ready for immediate consumption without the need for normalization, transformation, or simplification. Our semantic AI technology, built into the Semaphore software that we demonstrated today, uses machine learning and knowledge models to synthesize, enrich, extract, and harmonize all types of metadata. which greatly simplifies creating and sharing what the data means. Now, we store this meaning with the data to power informed search, contextual applications, grounded data for analytics, rigorous data governance, and transformational data security. The robust set of capabilities of our unified platform benefit our customers by enabling data agility, which is the ability to easily make powerful changes to how data is interpreted and acted on. Ease of connection. You can integrate existing data sources, repositories, applications, and workflows. Delivery of information in context to its use case and its intended audience. And of course, data trust. And that's earned by a traceable, transparent, repeatable, and auditable results, understandable by business users. Now, all facts and interpretations are part of the business record, and we do manage that through metadata. Now, with MarkLogic Data Platform, you reduce the effect of data and knowledge silos in your organization with a single data source along with everything that's known about what the data means. And it's all supported with enterprise-grade database capabilities like security, scalability, availability, language support, temporality, interfaces, and a standards-based architecture. If you think these are benefits your organization can take advantage of, we'd love to have a conversation. MarkLogic is being used around the world to support a wide variety of use cases involving complex data. We'd be very interested to hear about your use case, and we can have a technical meeting with your team to discuss. Now, with that, we've got a few minutes to answer some of your questions live. And if we don't get time to answer them live, we will follow up with you afterwards using the email address that you registered with. So let's take a look and see what's in the queue. All right. First question up is some folks who are familiar with the MarkLogic database platform, MarkLogic server. They want to know how exactly Semaphore works with the MarkLogic database.
Thanks. Yeah, that's a very common question we've been getting these days since the merger. Let me share my screen. I have a slide to talk to that. Whoop, get rid of that. Here we go. Yeah, there we go. Great. Yeah, so it's a great question. Generally, Semaphore sits on top of MarkLogic. Generally, MarkLogic is the triple store, if you will, that stores all of the triples created by Semaphore. If you look here in this diagram, this section here is pretty much Semaphore. You have your KMM that I discussed in the demo there. We have our classification engine and our semantic enhancement engine, and it kind of sits on top of the MarkLogic server. So if you follow the flow here, you could have your structured or unstructured data and reference data, and it's fed into the data and the classification engine or whatever you're doing with it. It sends it to MarkLogic, and it could be stored. If it's a document, it can be stored as is. We can have the harmonization, meaning like you could make sure that all of your alt labels are pointing to the proper concept. You can have your capture your entities. Anything that's enriched can be saved as well. If you were doing some classification like aboutness, like we did in the demo, you could store the document as well as any kind of tags that were created. So those tags can be always there associated with the document, things like that. The one thing I always like to mention is that SmartLogic and MarkLogic have been working together for many, many years. As a matter of fact, the MarkLogic Cloud, which has been in existence for about 6 years now, I believe, is supported by the MarkLogic server. All of the data in MarkLogic Cloud is in MarkLogic. I'm sorry, all the data in SmartLogic Cloud is in MarkLogic. So that's been happening for years.
Okay, great. So actually that ties into
Did it again. I'm gonna have to move.
Stop sharing. End your screen share.
There we go. That should do it. Come on. There we go.
All right. Yeah. Sorry, technical difficulties.
Sorry about that.
But that ties into another question that came in. You mentioned Semaphore Cloud. So, is this just a cloud solution? Are there other options? Is it available on premises?
Sure. Yeah. Semaphore is available on-prem or in Semaphore Cloud. And they're both great offerings. I think Semaphore Cloud has been the more popular one as of late. But yeah, it is definitely, if you have security issues or things like that, you can definitely use our on-prem solution.
Okay, great. Next one. So what foreign languages do you support? You were showing some of the Spanish stuff. Folks want to know what other languages are available.
There's about 36 different languages available for classification engine. If you're just modeling the information like I was showing there, you can do any language. It's pretty much anything's available there. If you're doing classification, that's a little different. There's licensing packs that need to be acquired, and I believe, like I said, I think it's about 36 different languages. We can send you that list. I don't want to run that. I don't want to list all of them right now on the call, but if you could mark that one for us, we can send the list out.
Okay, great. Yeah. So there's a question about professional services, like in terms of getting set up and also if there are any partnerships available to help get data into Semaphore. Can you comment on kind of how do you get started on this, and what kind of help can people get?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. We do have professional services available internally. We can run the whole show for you, but our preference is kind of like to teach you how to fish. So we kind of sit with you and do the first one. We have training programs available as well. We can either do a online kind of training thing, or we have customized training solutions where our professional services are working with you as they're developing your solution. So that approach is really cool. We kind of work together on the first 1 or 2 iterations, and then you kind of go off and running. And lots of times our clients end up teaching us things. We have a great community forum that we meet monthly, and our users get together and share ideas with us and each other. We also have some SIs, some system integrators we work with that can help you get this off the ground as well.
Okay, cool. We have a question here about, that the non-crowdsourced data and model sources like WAND, Wikidata, Query Service, and so forth. Are there costs associated with those? Great
question. So the ones I showed, the WAND ones there would be. That's a partner that's in business of creating models that are kind of ready to be used. They can be enriched further, of course. You get them in there, and then you start making the changes specific to your organization. And there would be a cost to those kind of models. But there's a lot of open source stuff out there as well, and that's the ones that I listed. The Medra and the Neem are some examples of some free ones out there, and some searches will help you find some other data sources. I find lots of fun stuff out there for my demos. But the Wikidata source was really cool because you just run your Sparkle queries right into Semaphore. So if it's in there, that's a great place to start, and that's all free.
Great. Okay, here's another Semaphore and MarkLogic question. Is It says, as I recall, MarkLogic was one of the companies that most impressed me in Charlotte MESC. That's the Medicaid enterprise. So what is it, in short, that Semaphore is adding to MarkLogic?
Yeah, it is a great question. So think about it as Semaphore has three major components. It has the KMM, which is the knowledge model management. I spent most of my demo in there. You have your classification engine, your CLS, and your fact extraction. And that kind of sits on its own, and it does the classification or the fact extraction or the harmonization piece of that. And then the semantic enhancement is the widgets that can be put onto your sites that have access to the models and the taxonomies and fun stuff like that. It's also your integration piece. So we can, my blur keeps blurring me out. It can integrate with a lot of different products, like, BI products or search engines or content management systems, things like that.
I think, like, when we're talking about the two together, I come from kind of the heritage MarkLogic side, and I always felt like, all right, MarkLogic, the database was a great platform for managing data and metadata, but you've got to be generating this stuff somehow, like creating those knowledge models and tagging all of that stuff. So I think it's really, Semaphore is like this missing piece.
So yeah, the KMM has a lot. So it brings a lot of things, and I was about to touch on that. So with KMM, you have your governance piece. So you get your data governance, right? So you can do release management, things like that. So you can add QA steps. You can have different people interacting with the models differently. So you could have your SMEs, like I mentioned, with the KRT doing the crowdsourcing. You have your curator that's working within the model. So they can have different roles, and you can add QA steps. You can have committee release and things like that. We also have the ability to publish to different applications. And that's another thing that we bring to the table. The enrichment, the generating metadata, that's a big one, right? The classification engine creates the tags that can be associated with the document and it's stored in MarkLogic. MarkLogic doesn't do that. It doesn't.
Right. It's creating that context to the data, right? So, all of the metadata that surrounds it, so that you can do those more rich and robust queries and better analysis and so forth on this richer data. Cool. Their question here. I'm not sure if you can answer this one or not. Do you know about any kind of models or taxonomies specifically for Medicaid type data?
There are a lot of things out there around medical. I wish we had Jim Morris on, one of my peers. He's like the medical guy. He knows quite a bit about it. Medro would be my first one. And I've done some things around insurance, like the CPT codes and the ICD-10 stuff. One of our clients shared their Optum catalog with us, and we were showing how we could easily just put those ICD-10 codes and I think they're CPT codes right in there. They're just in CSV files, and you just import them right in. That's what I would think of for that. That question.
That question made me think of something else too, because it was talking about the maturity of available or ready-made models. But what have you seen, Lance, with your work with customers on kind of, okay, there's existing models out there, but how much, customization do people tend to do to make it fit in their organization? Because I think that's one of the advantages of Semaphore, is that it's no code, so you can have your actual business analysts and whatnot working on this, the ones who really know the data. But it's like, how much, what's that delta between ready-made and customization?
It's a great point, a great question. I mean, the whole point of one of the main points is for the vocabulary to be specific to your organization, and so I just don't think that everything's going to be ready-made or ready to go perfect. Like, it's going to require some human intervention in there to adjust it to your organization's vocabulary, so that your source of truth is the right source of truth, right? So, but I think those wand products are great because it's a great starting point. Like, if you're an accounting firm and you have your basic accounting terms, you can get started with that, and then start, removing out or retiring terms that aren't necessary for you, and adding things in that are, or adjusting things that are. And that's another thing that's great about KMM governance, is you can build in deprecation processes that are very cool. If data governance is something that you need.
Okay, cool. Let's see. Got a question on, is there a free trial?
Awesome question. So if you go to smartlogic.com, there is, and all you need is a LinkedIn account to get started. It'll log you in. You get 30 days to play with it. Space Missions model is there, so you can go ahead and see those and start playing with the same data that I just showed. Great question. I should have thought of that one.
All right. Well, I think we've covered everything in here. Actually, we did have one question about, and I'm not sure how we'd answer this one, quite frankly. In what way is MarkLogic getting ready to provide services as ChatGPT does? I'm not sure that's really a fit, but we're talking AI, and we say, this is semantic AI. So, if you can kind of comment on the AI-ness of Semaphore. I know Jeremy, our head of strategy, likes to talk about things in terms of trustworthy AI, because we've all heard those stories about ChatGPT and how it hallucinates. That's my favorite term for that recently. And it just seems like with our customers, there's AI can only be trusted so far. So can you comment on kind of the trustworthiness of this?
I will, a little bit. So as far as the ChatGPT goes, we're actually working on our positioning on that now, and I'm not going to jump out on that. I know Jeremy's actually working on that exact topic. I've been part of those discussions, but stay tuned. More will be revealed there for sure. But how does this modeling work with machine learning and AI? I mean, it's a great tool. It's like giving it some steroids, or giving it like a preload. Like giving it and focusing on your vocabulary. Semaphore can help remove some of the ambiguity between terms. For instance, if I told someone, can you go to the store and grab me an apple? I'm not sure exactly what they're going to come back with. They're going to come back with a fruit, or they're going to come back with a phone or a monitor or whatever, So whatever your business is, you can define what Apple means to your business. And then when you start throwing AI at that, it's not going to run down the wrong path. It can stay on the straight, on the right path there. And then it can, we're not a replacement to AI. We are just something that helps it stay on the right track and get the right information.
So basically, great platforms for supplying the data to support your AI models that you're working on.
Correct.
Okay, cool. Last minute question coming in here. Speaking of local customization of terminology, can you weigh in on synonyms? Sometimes people refer to something with a term, even though it is not a great match. Maybe people have heard it, but have never been corrected as to the technically perfect term, kind of local colloquial, if you will.
Yes, we handle synonyms very, very well. I'm gonna share my screen again. Hopefully it'll go better than last time. Let's see, it's this one here. Share screen. that look okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
So we do handle synonyms very well. Let me go back to the details. So if I'm looking at Apollo 11 here, all these alt labels are synonyms, right? It's just another way to refer to the concept. So it could be a lot of different things. It could be a code, like a skin or a model number. It could be an abbreviation. It could be slang. It could be a number of different ways to represent that that term. And you can actually make custom. Excuse me. Sorry, technical problem here. There we go. You can create. There we go. My mouse is acting a little sticky. You can create your own synonyms, types, if you will. Now it's going slow. There we go. So we have classes. There we go. So these are the custom alt labels. So you could create something called abbreviation or something like that. So then you can start storing synonyms that are abbreviations to the concepts.
The questioner, the person who asked the original question, wrote in with a clarification. Was asking about, can you give relative weight to things?
Yes, and I was leading up to that. I'm glad that's
got it. Okay.
Yes. So check this out. So KMM works directly with your classification tool, right? So you can actually go in to the term itself. So if I was interested in this particular alt label, I can go in and change the weight of it. I can change the case sensitivity. I can say I don't want to do this one. I can talk about its behavior in the rule base. So I can say, I just want a single term, or I want it to be treated exactly as a phrase. Here we go, influence in the rule base. So I can actually say if it's high, low, or none. So if I say none, even if it ever sees it, it would never fire. If I put high, it'll fire every single time, or tag if present. I can do that. Now that's right here in KMM. If I go into the classification strategy, basically the hard coding of the evidence and the weighting, you can put very specific weights on those synonyms. So you could say one type of synonym, like the abbreviation type, might have a super high weight, but something like a slang term would have a much lower weight to fire. So yes, we can do that, is the short answer. Great question. Thank you for that one.
All right, super. Well, I think we have covered them all. Folks can also, of course, contact us directly afterwards if you've got more questions. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Lance, for the great demo and for addressing all those questions on the fly. And please stay tuned to our Bright Talk channel for more demos of both Semaphore and the MarkLogic server and the overall MarkLogic data platform capabilities. And with that, I'll let you all go. Have a great day.
Thank you, Ray.
Okay.